satisfying addictions of myself and others at all costs.
Yes, so let's look at addictions. Addictions, and this is addictions from myself to others and from others to me. So both, satisfying both is a problem. Addictions are like a great big vortex of holes inside of our soul. So if you can think of your soul, I'll just draw it like that, and imagine parts of your soul has vortex, like sucking in, you know, like, and then there's other vortexes that are going out, right? Out of you, and they're like vortexes go out of you into others, you know, where they're sucking and you're giving, right? So I'm give me, you know, and they're going give me, and I give them certain things they want, as long as I get the things I want, right? Now, without us understanding, we're thinking we're satisfying pain. We're making our pain go away. Isn't it pretty? Like, we're going, oh, I'll make that better for you. That's what we're doing. That's what we think we're doing. Right? But what are we really doing? We're continuing the hole in that person. So their pain is going to live longer. And if they do it to us, they're continuing the hole inside of us, and so that pain will live longer. It'll never be satisfied until that hole is healed. Right?
If a woman or a man have the need for approval, for example,
yep,
and she or he gets it, but don't really receive it, so he demands more and more and more.
Every addiction is like that, Fabian. Every addiction is like you never can get enough.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? So if you need approval and it's an addiction, you're never going to get enough. You're going to need more and more and more and more. Yep. But go on.
So what
do you do about that?
Yeah.
Yes, you've got to feel the reason for the addiction, don't you? So if the addiction is I want approval, then what does that mean? What is the grief going to probably be?
Feeling of worthlessness?
Yeah, that you're unwilling to feel, right? And you're so unwilling to feel it that you're willing to suck approval from everyone around you rather than just learn how to approve of yourself, right? So that means that you have grief associated with either feeling worthless or having disapproval in your past, and you're not letting it go. And so you become like say to the group in Australia, you become like a sucking octopus, you know, like putting your tentacles around the people who will give you the addiction and sucking the life out of them.
Do the sound effect, babe.
You know, like sucking the life out of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what your addictions do. Your addictions are like that. They suck the life out of people around you. Can you see that addictions are going to be a major part, or addressing addictions are going to have to be a major part of looking at our fears? Our addictions tell us what our real fears are. And this is the interesting thing about the law of attraction, is it'll bring you the event you're often trying to avoid, you know, and heighten the addiction. And eventually it does that because we heighten the addiction, and we get to the point where the addiction is so obvious that we can't avoid the addiction anymore. We can't avoid what we're doing anymore. And there's a law, in fact, that involves that of God's, that allows us to, that every time we engage in addiction, we feed it, it makes the addiction grow. So in other words, our hole inside of us increases, which causes the addiction to grow. And eventually the addiction grows so big that we notice it. Does that make sense? And that's one of the laws, in fact, of God that causes you to be able to eventually see that you're in an addiction of some kind. And someone down. Al?
So it seems like, God's created something inherent in us, which is a desire for good feelings, for, joy. And then what we've done, just our whole life, I'm just seeing this now, that we've created physical or emotional addictions because we want it, but we don't know how to get it.
That's right. We don't understand that the pain that's within us, when we avoid it, it also precludes good feelings. Yeah, and so then our addictions intensify in order to feel good. And the reality is now I can feel good just sitting down alone by myself doing nothing, you know what I mean? And so it's sort of like, back before I started this, of course, that wasn't the case at all. I had to be pursuing something that I feel would make me feel good. Importance of desire, can't be underestimated. The instant you have a pure desire to know an addiction will be the instant that God shows you the addiction. It's quite simple. God always answers prayers, and prayers are always based on pure desire. So we can say, I want to know what my addictions are, while at exactly the same time saying, in our soul going, oh, I don't want to know what my addictions are. I want them all met. I want them all, I want them all to be satisfied. That's what I really want, And even the honesty of I want them all satisfied would be better than going, I really want to know what my addictions are. When you have that time of pure desire, remember, and particularly if you direct that to God, that's now prayer. And if it's pure, it will always be answered instantly. So if you're praying to God to help you expose your addictions, and in the course of the day, no addictions get exposed to you, then that is an indication that you are not being sincere in your prayer with God. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And many.
The problem with addictions is that you become unaware of yourself. Your addiction is now dominating your behaviour rather than your will dominating your behaviour. You understand that when you're in your addiction, you're really no longer really understanding the exercise of your will, because your will is being used unlovingly in the addiction. Now, I've been really polite with you guys in calling them addictions, right? They're evil loves. They're evil loves. Your addictions are evil loves. So many of you need to start to see, wow, my addictions, many of you have thought of them as, oh yeah, that's just me, or oh yeah, that's not that important, oh yeah, I know I make a mistake here and there with my addictions, but everybody does that kind of thinking. You see that if you remember in the group this weekend, we just called them evil loves. And the reason why I call them that is because that reminds you that every addiction is evil. It has an evil undertone in it. It has a way, anything out of harmony with love, God's love I'm talking about now, is evil in its nature to a large degree. And we've got to get to the stage where we see it as such. You're very uninclined to change unless you see it as wrong. Yeah. You see, so for most of us with our addictions, we sort of see them as rights. Our right. It's right for us to do it. And we also see it as our right to do it as well, rather than seeing even that attitude in itself as evil. Right? The reason why I want to talk about it is how strong does a desire have to be, and for what does the desire have to be for you to make a change with regard to your sincerity? So let's first look at for what are you going to change your sincerity? Any ideas? Let's start with Helena.
If you really believe it's going to improve your life.
Well, the trouble for many of you with regard to improvement of your life is that you believe meeting addictions improves your life. And so an example of that is, let's say you have faith that meeting people's addictions is not a good thing. So let's say you develop faith in that. So in other words, you have faith that you must not meet a person's addictions and it will bring the best outcome. So that's what you have faith in. Let's say.
Or can we say it in a more direct way? The best thing I can do is not meet people's addictions.
Yeah. And you have faith that that's true, right? So when you have faith in that, every time somebody tries to engage you in addiction, you just won't do it. Right? And you'll see the benefits of not doing it in every case. Like where it would have led you and then where you didn't go because you didn't do it. You know, where that other thing could have led you and you didn't do it and so it didn't lead you down that garden path either. And you start seeing all the benefits of it and you start measuring it. But if it's in your heart, you can do that. If it's not in your head or just as a concept, you're not going to do it. People are going to engage in addiction with you and you'll be right. You'll be right in it and then afterwards you go, oh, there I was in that addiction again. But because you don't have faith that not responding to a person's addiction is a good thing, you'll keep responding. You'll keep responding to their addictions, thinking that you're doing good when actually it's just harming you and them. And the consequences will be shown to you quite clearly through that. So there's another example how faith in a truth, which is not to meet people's addictions. So that's the truth. That's the loving thing, and it's also the truth. If you have faith in it, it can benefit your life greatly. But on earth, again, the average person has faith in the opposite of that. And that's why we have such a mess on earth.
How God feels about human addictions. So how does God feel about her children engaging in personal addictions? We've spoken about sin generally. If we could be more specific and discuss this issue of addictions, and perhaps we'll just give a brief summary of addiction, which is any action or behaviour or habit or anything I do internally or externally to avoid my own emotional experience for any period of time. And it's not, I need to repetitively engage with it, and it never actually reduces the emotional, removes emotion from me. It's just a pure distraction and avoidance. And often we're very compulsive in these things. We feel like they're out of our control because we feel they're driven by the desire to avoid emotional experience.
Yeah, so we must say here we're talking not about just physical addictions such as, that are dangerous or habitual, but also about the emotional addictions, which are even worse in most cases. And often more
insidious.
Overlooked. They're insidious and overlooked. So what does God feel about all these things? Well, it's very interesting what God feels about them, because God feels in some ways that they're worse than the sin itself.
So can you explain that and draw the distinction between sin and addiction?
Well, the sin is the result of the addiction. Where the addiction causes us to break God's laws. The addiction is the cause, the motivating thing that causes us to decide to do something out of harmony with love, whether it's out of harmony with love of self or out of harmony with love of others. So the addiction is actually the cause.
Yes.
The result is the sin, right? The desire to sin is the addiction.
Yep.
Right? The addiction is the desire to sin.
So I desire to avoid my pain.
So there's a desire to sin right there.
Desire to sin. My addiction is anger. Or my addiction is chocolate.
Or passive aggression or
control.
Drug abuse or alcohol abuse or
TV.
Or TV or just, making everyone around you feel your pain or...
Involving others,
lots of different things.
All those things. So that's my addiction.
That's your sin. Your sin, the actions you took are your sin.
Okay, so what's the addiction?
The addiction is the frenzy emotion driving the sin.
The desire to avoid.
it's the addiction is the desire. The sin is what the desire brings about. Right. So
the action, you mean? I take.
Yeah. Well, no, it might not just be an action. It might be a thought. It might be a word. It might be an action. It might be intention or some future intention even, or whatever. But it's all driven from a desire at some point.
Yes.
The desire is the addiction.
Yes.
Right? So what does God feel about the addiction? Well, the addiction is worse than the action, because the addiction causes the action. It's the primary root cause of what you do.
So really then, by that definition I gave at the beginning, there's really only one addiction. That all those things that I engage in aren't the addictions. The addiction is I don't want to feel A or B, or I don't want to feel
Well,
emotion.
it's not necessarily just that you might have an addiction for power or addiction for some other thing that is not driven by an avoidance of an emotion. It's just that you want to experience a different emotion. Do you understand?
So you need to refine my definition at the beginning then.
That's right. You can't just say that your desire to do something to sin is driven by some error, because it is not always driven by error. It's often driven by this what's called a desire, a loving desire becoming fertile. In other words, an unloving desire being fed and watered and becoming fertile, and then you choose the unloving action.
So I experienced something once where I feel in power and control over another person, and I love the rush of it. I love it. I feel like, wow, that's amazing. It's like a drug to me.
Yeah.
I'm not even avoiding anything. I'm just seeking that kind of pleasure.
You love that feeling.
Sort of
you
rush.
see it as a pleasure, and you want it as an instant result. You don't care about the consequences of it. That desire drove you to the sin of taking power or, over other people. So the sin is the taking power over other people. The desire is the motivator for taking power over people. So,
which is the addiction.
So the addiction is the desire, and the addiction doesn't have to be caused by prior harm or the avoidance of prior harm even. It can be just caused by something you want. It just be something that you've decided to want. You know what I mean? And so we've got to be very careful here, because the addiction itself is the driving force for all sin.
And the addiction is really the condition within the soul, not the action.
Yes, the addiction is the desire that is fertile in the soul, creating the action, creating the response, creating the behavior that you generate as a result.
Yes,
right?
so the sin, by the definition we gave a couple of sections ago. Yep.
The sin is the behavior, is what we do.
The human behavior.
The addiction is the desire that drives what we do. Now, what do you think God's going to think about that? Of course, God's going to think that the reason why what you do is worse than what you do.
It's more significant.
It's more significant because it generates what you do.
Yes.
So this is where I notice we talk about addiction with people, and everyone almost laughs about it. And I'm going, man, this is serious that you laugh about it, because the reality is, it is the driving desire for your sin. So from God's perspective, you think God dislikes sin? What do you think God feels about addiction?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Deep hatred for addiction.
Yes. Are we saying hatred there?
Yeah. Well, it's not a violent emotion from God's perspective.
Right.
It's a deep, dislike or hatred for the sin, for the addiction itself. That the fact that you want it, you want to keep it in you, you want to maintain it, you want it. He's not that impressed with it, right? He doesn't judge it in the sense of like, you're a bad person, unworthy, and all these other things now because of it. So stop putting any human context on hatred.
That's right. I just want to be careful, because a lot of people assume that the opposite of love is hate.
That's right.
And then how can this loving being be full of hate?
No, it's not like that at all.
So
he doesn't have a violent response to your addiction.
Yep.
Right. And if he did, you'd be dead by now.
Yep.
Right. Because let's face it, most of us have had a whole list of addictions. So, and if God really engaged his dislike in a violent manner, you'd already be dead. So give up the idea that God's violent about the whole thing. But if you can feel God's feelings about addictions, when God transmits those feelings to you through the conscience, you will feel, yes, he is very firm about his dislike of this addiction.
Yes.
And the reason why is he knows that it is the desire that drives, it is the cause of the sin. The sin is caused by this underlying desire that you have fertilized and kept within you by choice. So while other people might have handed it to you, or you might develop it for yourself, at the end of the day, it's now in you and you like it. And this is our problem. We've got to get rid of the fact that we like it. We've got to face the fact we like it, work our way through it. Now, as soon as we make that change and decision to do that, God loves that decision we're making now, because he knows that without addressing the addiction, the desire, the sin will never disappear.
Yes.
And unless we fix the cause of our sin, the sin itself will remain, and we'll keep creating new ones of the same type. He knows that. So it's a very, so while God feels some compassion for our emotional injuries that drive our need to have our addictions fulfilled, God also knows that our addictions are the primary driving force for our sin. And he wants us to get rid of our addictions. And I cannot stress how much God wants us to get rid of our addictions, because he knows that if you get rid of the addictions, the desire to sin disappears.
Aren't you saying that the addictions are the desire to sin?
That's right.
Yes.
You get rid of the addiction, the desire for sin disappears. The addiction is the desire. So you get rid of the addiction, you've got rid of the desire to sin.
Yes.
And so the sin naturally will never be created.
Yeah.
And God knows this, of course.
Yeah.
And so this is why God wants us to see that our addictions are the main driving factor for our evil actions. And unless we remove addictions, we are not sincere about getting rid of sin. Right? So this is very important for us to understand.
Yes.
So to God, the cause of our evil actions, which is our desire to satisfy our addictions, right, has to be dealt with. And unless we consider the cost of our addictions to ourselves and others, we are not dealing with our sin.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not. And it's just as unloving and as evil as the evil actions we engage to retain the underlying condition that drives those evil actions.
Yeah.
So everyone sort of, when we talk to them about addictions, they have this real sort of innocent look on their face. Well, you think that's bad? I didn't do anything about that. But you have, of course.
Yeah.
But, you know, they think, oh, it's not so bad. You know, everybody has that or whatever.
Yep.
From God's perspective, it's the cause, the driving factor of our evil actions. So it has to be eradicated. And God has got laws upon laws established to eradicate your evil desires.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want me to go through then those notes? I think you've covered it all.
I think so. Yeah, I think I've covered it. Like you can see that evil comes about from the desire to satisfy addiction without the consideration or of the real costs of the addiction. So you can see we're basically choosing to engage our selfishness and not consider the cost of our selfishness to others or to the environment or to the energy that goes into correcting the results of our selfishness for others in the environment or, you know, or God's angelic messengers even, or, you know, we're not considering any of these costs at all. So it's very, very selfish for it. We just want our addiction met and that's it. Want our addiction met, that's it. And unless we start seeing addictions as evil, we are not going to fix them. And unless we start seeing them as the cause of our sinful behavior, we are not going to fix them. And this is God's feelings about this is very strong. You must see the cause of your sinful behavior.
Of your sinful behavior. Yeah, all right.
So God has, like I said, there's a huge number of laws that measure the desire to sin.
Yes.
Yep. And in fact act upon the desire to sin. Try to correct the desire to sin. So yeah, like God, a lot of God's laws that pertain to the human soul are about correcting the desire to sin, because naturally God knows that it's the desire to sin that, when acted upon, causes a sin.
Okay.
Now, our better course of action with our addictions is to go, right, I can feel this desire to sin. I'm going to refuse to allow this desire to sin to be acted upon. So that means I haven't sinned now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to focus my attention on removing from me the reason why I feel like I want to.